guys, and welcome to Book and Loop, where happiness is handmade and the best boyfriends are always found in books. So I am in my Christmas pajamas because it is Christmas today, and I wanted to kind of just take this time to record a video to talk about my 2022 TBR. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. So the first book I'm going to be reading in 2022 is Where Dreams Descend by Janella. This book takes place in a circus where you have three magicians that are going to be competing against each other to become the headliner for the circus. In order to do this, they have to compete in a bunch of different tasks where each task gets harder and harder as the book goes on and more tasks are presented. So I found this book when I was at work one day, looking through a list of cozy winter reads, and this was one of the books that had been suggested, and when I saw the cover and I read the synopsis, it really caught my eye, and I was like, I have to take this book home with me, and I have to read it. The whole premise just kind of really caught my attention, of it being like a competition to be the headliner of the circus. The characters sound really interesting. This is Janella first book in the series. This is her debut novel in the Kingdom of Cards series. So this is book one. I'm a big series person, so I'm very excited to see where the story is going to go, to like really dive into it and learn a little more about this world that she's creating and learn more about the characters that are going to be competing for the headliner spot. Okay, so the next book that I'll be reading in 2022 is going to be Olympus by Rachel Smythe. The other day I was Christmas shopping in Target and I saw this and I had to get it. I had a couple friends that have read it already and they recommended it to me, and I just had to pick it up when I saw it. I'm a huge Greek mythology person. Anybody who knows me knows that. I'm a huge Percy Jackson fan. During my undergrad, I did my senior thesis on Greek mythology and how the idea of the hero has shifted mainly through the lens of looking at the Iliad and then translating it into Percy Jackson, and how the idea of the hero and how we look at a hero has really changed and shifted. So I was really excited to pick this up. I love the Hades and Persephone story. I'm a sucker for a good graphic novel, so I had to pick it up, and the illustrations, I mean, are just gorgeous in this, and the colors are so bright and pretty, so I am super excited to be reading this. So this is a modern reimagining of the Persephone and Hades story, that, and just kind of like all the different stories of the gods, but put into a modern world, which I always love stuff like that. I loved going to see Hadestown on Broadway and how they brought in a lot of technologies into that, such as bringing in the idea of the train being the passage to the underworld and all stuff like that. Obviously Percy Jackson, very influential on me. They do bring a lot of modern aspects into that, and I think looking at the lessons that Greek mythology can show you through that modern lens can be really helpful for a lot of kids, and you can really translate the lessons very well, because there is a lot of lessons to be learned from Greek mythology. That's a lot of the stories were used as lessons, similarly to different folk tales and different fairy tales. You're learning a lesson through the story, no matter what it may be, whether it be the story of Pandora or it be the story of Cinderella. You're learning a different lesson every single time that you read any sort of story like that, and bringing it into a modern context where kids and even adults can digest it in an easier way, a way that makes sense to our modern minds and we can translate into our modern world, is so important. And I get myself super excited and geeked out over all different stuff like that. So I'm super excited to dive into Olympus and to see what all see what all the hype is about, because I've heard so much about this over the past few years. And when I saw it, like I said, when I saw the hard copy, I was like, oh, I'm gonna finally read it, and I'm gonna jump into it, and I'm super, super excited. So the next book that I'll be reading is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Again, I was in Target, as you can see, looking for Christmas presents when I saw this book, and I had to pick it up. I actually bought 2 copies of it and gifted one to one of my friends, hoping to do a little sort of New Year book club with her. So this story caught my eye because it is a romance, which my friend is super into, and it is also a fantasy, which I'm super into. So the story is about a girl who finds out that the boy that she is absolutely in love with is going to be marrying someone else. And so she seeks counsel with the King of Hearts. In exchange for his help, he asks that Evangeline, who's the main character, gives him 3 kisses, and those 3 kisses can be whenever he chooses. But Evangeline kind of finds out that the King of Hearts has some ulterior motives. So the cover really caught my eye on this book. I am absolutely a, if I see a pretty cover, I'm going to buy it kind of person. I like the way that it looks on my shelf, and the spine is really super pretty. I love any, like, royalty, fantasy, romance kind of trope going on. It's one of my favorites, because every girl wants to be a princess at some point in their life. If they say no, they're lying. And I just can't help myself. I love a good royalty romance trope. So I am super excited to dive into this. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I'm very interested to find out what the King of Hearts wants from Evangeline. Yeah, so I'm going to probably be reading this at the end of January. And like I said, I'm going to try to do this as like a sort of book club with one of my other friends. So maybe I'll post up on Instagram once I'm starting it. And if anybody else is interested in this book, they can maybe pick it up too, and we can all read it together. Like one big giant book club. So that is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Okay, jumping back into Greek mythology, the next book that I will be reading is Lore by Alexandra Bracken. And like I said, I am completely obsessed with Greek mythology, and so the second that I heard that this book was coming out, I immediately added it to my to-buy list, and then ran out and bought it. Unfortunately, I've been a little busy with school, and so I haven't had time to read it yet, which is the case with some of the other books that I will be including in my 2022 TBR as well. But I am promising myself that I'm going to sit down and read Lore this year because, first of all, the cover is stunning. And like I said, I absolutely adore Greek mythology being brought into our modern world. I think that it is, like I said previously, talking about Lore Olympus, that it is so vitally important to our understanding of human nature, and to not only that, but also just our general understanding of life and the lessons that Greek mythology can teach us, and all of that amazingness. And beyond the fact that it's just really good stories too. The way that they looked at life and the world and how it all worked is so unique, and I love when people are able to translate that into our modern understanding of the world and how it works. So I'm very much excited to be reading this year. I think that it is going to be really amazing. Alexandra Bracken is a really great writer, and I know that this is going to be probably one of my favorite books that I will read this year. So, no surprise, like I said, I do love fantasy, so majority of the books that I am planning on reading in 2022 are fantasy books. And so the next one that I have for you guys is The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. So The Queen's Rising is about a fantasy world where people have 5 different passions to choose from. And these passions are art, music, dramatics, wit, and knowledge. And our main character, Brianna, does not have her passion down yet. So once you kind of have mastered your passion, you'll get a patron that is going to kind of like sponsor you through life. So Brianna is kind of left without a patron until one day this mysterious lord contacts her and wants to be her patron. But there's a little more than meets the eye, as expected in any kind of fantasy book, and Brianna will have to kind of decide which side she wants to take and which path she'll go on in life. This book, I feel like will be kind of right up my alley. Like I said, I'm very much into the whole royalty trope and how like people enter into that world when they're not originally from it. Think like Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, or honestly even A Court of Thorns and Roses, where you have somebody that's like an outsider coming into now this world where they're being exposed to all different royalty systems and like trying to navigate that and add in any little touch of magical element, and you basically have like a guarantee buy for me. This was like a really pleasant surprise from one of my book boxes. I was surprised to find that it like matched up so well with the kind of books that I really love to read, because you don't always know exactly what you're going to be getting. But I was really happy when I pulled this out of the box and was like, okay, yes, like this is like exactly what the kind of books that I enjoy reading and the kind of stories that I like to consume. Okay, so the next fantasy book that I will be reading in 2022 is Onyx and Ivory by Mindee Arnett. I can honestly say that this is another book that is going to be exactly up my alley. I received this in another LitJoy subscription box. This one is a LitJoy exclusive edition with the artwork on the inside and the letter from the author. It's signed with a little exclusive edition note inside. This book follows the story of Kate, who was cast out from nobility after her father tried to assassinate the king. So now she kind of just roams around and she fights these like wingless dragons that have been like attacking and plaguing their kingdom for years now. One day she stumbles upon this group of people that have just been completely massacred by the night drakes, the dragons, and she finds amongst them the son of the king that her father had tried to kill. So from there they kind of join up and have to figure out why the drakes, the dragons, are now attacking in the daytime as opposed to when they were only attacking at nighttime. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of like an enemies to lovers, just because obviously there's the whole assassination attempt that is kind of going to come between them, and kind of like that, okay, like we're kind of like being forced to work together. It seems like they probably won't really get along because of their history together and what happened in the past. And I'm a sucker for stuff like that. So I'm really excited to read this. I think the cover art is absolutely beautiful. I love the tree and the way that it just like looks so like misty and mysterious. And it actually came with these little playing cards as well. And I got the package from LitJoy with the character art on it, which I just absolutely love stuff like that. I love reading both Marissa Meyer and Maggie Stiefvater's books because they both do really amazing character art for their characters. It's something that I wish that I could do for my characters in the book that I'm writing, but I'm not that great of an artist. But I do absolutely love when authors kind of include character art of their characters into either the book or on their website or anything like that, so you can kind of get an idea of what the characters are going to look like. So yeah, that is Onyx and Ivory by Mindee Arnett, and I am super excited to read this one. So the next book that I will be reading is Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dowd. I love retellings. As I mentioned before, I absolutely love Marissa Meyer's writing. I really love her Lunar Chronicles series. I just like really enjoy retellings of stories. I think it's fascinating to kind of see these stories from a different point of view, a different light, as I'm sure that you can kind of gather from this like 2022 TBR. I like Greek mythology retellings. I like fairy tale retellings. I like retellings because I think that it's really fun. I think it's like the little like fan fiction lover in me, in that like retellings just like hit home, you know? A Forest of a Thousand Lanterns is a retelling of the Evil Queen story from Snow White, and it is about a girl who finds out that she is destined to become the next empress. So her aunt kind of tells her that she's going to become empress, but first, before she does that, she needs to kind of gain a hold of her magic, and she needs to kind of leave the man that she loves behind. And our main character is not very excited to do that, and is very nervous about her destiny and what will become of her. The next book that I'll be picking up in 2022 is Paper Princess by Erin. Tosh Opolis actually recommended this book probably a few years ago, and I asked for it for Christmas one year and got it, and it has, I'm shameful to say this, has just been sitting on my shelf. And so I promised myself that I was going to read it this year. So The Paper Princess is the first book in a series about a girl who's kind of just having a rough go in her life right now. She just lost her mother, and she's kind of living in poverty and just kind of like in a really dark place. That is until a man finds her and kind of like takes her in and brings her to his house, which is a big, huge mansion, and he has a bunch of sons. So I believe this book is going to be a romance, and I am very excited to read it. Again, I kind of love that transplant of the person who is the outsider, and they're kind of being like brought into this whole new world. I think it's a really great trope. And again, it's kind of one that I think will always be a little timeless. So the final book that I will be reading in 2022 is going to be A Court of Silver Flames. So I am one of the biggest Cassian fans. When I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, I just absolutely loved Cassian. He was always my favorite. I loved how sarcastic and witty he was, and how he was kind of just like a tell it as it is, and like didn't hold back. So I'm super, super excited to be reading A Court of Silver Flames, where we're kind of going to be looking at Cassian and Nesta's story. I love when an author does something like this, where they're giving you kind of a taste of like what's going on in the other characters' lives. I think that stuff like that is really fascinating. It's one of the reasons that I really love Rick Riordan's writing. He never like leaves a character in the dark. He always like brings them in some way, even if it's like a completely different story, like bringing in Annabeth and Percy into Magnus Chase, or having like the crossovers between the Kane Chronicles and Percy Jackson, or like even now he's writing a new story where it's going to be like about Nico and Will, or when he did Trials of Apollo, and he would bring back characters from the other stories, so you can kind of like see like, okay, like this is what Leo's up to, and this is what Piper's up to, you know? So like stuff like that, like I love that. So I was super excited when I found out that Sarah J Maas was going to be continuing Cassian and Nesta's story, especially since Cassian was my favorite. Yeah, so where we kind of like left off with Nesta, I believe during A Court of Frost and Starlight, was that she was kind of like in a really bad place and was kind of just like not doing well. So I'm interested to see kind of like how she's doing. I mean, this is like a big boy. This is like a really thick book. I'm hoping that we'll see Nesta kind of like work out of her little like slump that she was into. But I also love when characters are kind of like really like gritty and very like honest, and I think it makes for a more interesting story than kind of like your cookie cutter perfect protagonist who's like very like easygoing in one way. And like I think having a main character where she's like gritty and she has like a very firm opinion, and she's not going to let other people tell her what to do. She's not going to meet your expectations. Makes a book super exciting. So I'm very excited to be reading more about Nesta and more about Cassian, and to kind of just like see everybody back together again, because I also love Azriel, and I loved Moore, and I loved all of the characters from A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I'm super super excited to be picking this up. I'm going to probably not be able to read this until the summer, because that will be after I graduate from school, but I am still looking forward to it a lot because it makes me happy. So that is my TBR for 2022. Like I said, I'm not very good at sticking to my TBR. I get very easily distracted when new books come out, or if I like look at my shelf and I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't read that yet, I'm gonna pick that up instead. But I'm going to try as hard as I can to stick to getting at least these books done. And it's not too much. I mean, it's 9 books. Can't believe I didn't go for even 10. That's a little awkward. So keep an eye out. I'm going to hopefully be posting a review for Where Dreams Descend once I finish it. Hopefully during the first week of January. I might have to do like a middle of the year TBR add-on, depending on if I get these books done, depending on how busy I am at school. And kind of like give you guys an update on where I am. So I hope you guys enjoyed kind of getting an idea of the books that I'm going to be reading this year. And like I said, I will probably be adding more to this list once I am a little further into the year and I've gotten some of these done. So I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about the books that I'm going to be reading this year. Like I said, am terrible at keeping a TBR, so I always try to keep it really small at the beginning of the year and then add on once I kind of like get through most of those books. So these are kind of the ones that I'm going to be starting with. So we have Where Dreams Descend, Once Upon a Broken Heart, Olympus, Lore, The Queen's Rising, Onyx and Ivory, Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, Paper Princess, and A Court of Silver Flames. So like I said, look out for some book reviews that I'll be posting over the next few months as I finish these books. So if you guys want to read any of these books with me and let me know what your thoughts are, I would love to hear about them. If you have any suggestions on any books that you think that I should pick up, or something that you feel is missing from my TBR, or if you just want to be like, hey, I read that book and I think it's really cool and I think you're gonna like it, that's cool too. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing new year and that you guys really enjoy your holidays and can relax and rest up for a new year of a bunch of new reads. See you soon.